At exactly 1:23 in the morning, a button was pressed inside a nuclear power plant in the Soviet Union. It was supposed to be a routine safety test, a simple experiment, something engineers had done many times before. Instead, that single moment unleashed one of the worst technological disasters in human history. A disaster so powerful that people standing miles away thought they were watching a beautiful fire in the night sky. Children slept softly as invisible death drifted through their windows. Firefighters rushed toward the glowing reactor, unaware that every second near the flames was shortening their lives. Within hours, radiation was spreading across Europe. Within days, entire cities would disappear. And for decades afterward, thousands of people would ask the same terrifying question: what really happened that night at Chernobyl? This is the story of human error, government secrecy, unimaginable courage, and a catastrophe that changed the world forever. But before we begin, if you enjoy powerful true stories from history, take a moment to subscribe to Real Story Network and join us as we uncover the events that shaped our world. Now, let's travel back to the Soviet Union in 1986. The Soviet Union was one of the most powerful nations on Earth, locked in a Cold War with the United States. It wanted to prove that communism could outperform the West in every field, including nuclear power. Nuclear energy represented the future. Clean, powerful, modern. Across the Soviet Union, massive nuclear plants were being built to fuel factories, cities, and economic growth. One of the largest was the Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant, located near the city of Pripyat in what is now Ukraine. Chernobyl Nuclear Power Plant. Just a few kilometers away stood the young city of Pripyat. Pripyat was a model Soviet city. Modern apartment buildings, schools, hospitals, parks, swimming pools, a newly constructed amusement park. Nearly 50,000 people lived there. Most worked directly or indirectly for the nuclear plant. Life seemed perfect. Residents enjoyed comfortable housing, stable jobs, and bright futures. Few could imagine that their city would soon become one of the most famous ghost towns in history. The disaster began with a safety test. Engineers wanted to know whether the plant's turbines could continue producing electricity for a short period after a power failure. The idea sounded reasonable. If outside power was lost, the spinning turbines might provide enough electricity to keep cooling systems running until emergency generators started. The test had been attempted before, but it had never been completed successfully. On April 25th, preparations began. Power levels inside reactor number 4 were reduced. Then unexpected delays occurred. Operators were ordered to keep the reactor running longer than planned. Hours passed. The night shift eventually inherited a reactor operating under unusual conditions. Fatigue began affecting decision-making. Several safety systems were disabled. Warnings appeared. Rules were ignored. Yet the test continued. Inside the control room, few people realized they were creating the perfect conditions for a catastrophe. At 1:23 a.m., operators finally began the test. Almost immediately, things started going wrong. The reactor became unstable. Power levels fluctuated dangerously. Operators noticed alarming readings. Panic spread through the control room. Then came the decision that would become infamous. The emergency shutdown button was pressed. Known as AZ-5, it was designed to stop the reactor instantly. Instead, it triggered a deadly flaw hidden within the reactor's design. For a few horrifying seconds, power surged dramatically. Then, boom, a massive explosion ripped through Reactor 4. The force blew a 1,000-ton concrete lid into the air. Steel twisted. Walls collapsed, the roof disintegrated. A second explosion followed. Flaming debris rained across the facility. The reactor core was exposed directly to the atmosphere, something that was never supposed to happen. For the first time in history, an operating nuclear reactor had exploded, and nobody fully understood what had just occurred. The first emergency calls described an ordinary fire, nothing more. Local firefighters responded immediately. Among them was Vasily Ignatenko and many other young men. They climbed onto burning rooftops. They battled flames with hoses. They handled radioactive debris with bare hands. No protective suits, no radiation detectors, no warning. Many noticed a strange metallic taste in their mouths. Others felt dizzy. Some began vomiting. But they continued working. Witnesses later described pieces of reactor graphite glowing blue on the ground. The firefighters picked them up, believing they were harmless debris. In reality, those fragments were emitting lethal radiation. By sunrise, many of the first responders had received radiation doses that no human body could survive. Yet, because of their actions, the fire was prevented from spreading to other reactors. Their sacrifice likely saved countless lives. Radiation cannot be seen. It has no smell, no color, no sound, and that made it terrifying. While firefighters fought flames, radioactive particles drifted into the atmosphere. A deadly cloud began moving across Europe. Meanwhile, residents of Pripyat slept peacefully. Children woke up for school. People walked to work. Families enjoyed a beautiful spring morning. Many residents gathered outside to watch the strange glow above the reactor. Some even brought their children. Nobody told them the truth. Nobody warned them that the air around them was becoming increasingly dangerous. Hours passed, then an entire day. Still no evacuation order. The Soviet government hesitated. Officials feared embarrassment. They feared panic. Most of all, they feared admitting the scale of the disaster. That delay exposed thousands of people to unnecessary radiation. For nearly 2 days, Soviet authorities remained largely silent. Then something unexpected happened. Over 1,000 kilometers away in Sweden, workers at a nuclear facility detected radiation on their clothing. At first, officials believed their own plant had suffered an accident. Investigations quickly proved otherwise. The radiation was coming from outside Sweden. Something catastrophic had happened somewhere else. Pressure mounted. Eventually, the Soviet Union could no longer hide the truth. The world learned that a nuclear reactor had exploded. Shock spread globally. Governments scrambled to assess the danger. Citizens feared radioactive contamination. Questions flooded newsrooms. How bad was it? How far would the radiation spread? Could this happen again? Nobody had clear answers. 36 hours after the explosion, buses began arriving in Pripyat. More than 1,000 buses. Residents received an announcement. They were told to take only essential belongings. Officials assured them they would return in a few days. Many left food on tables. Pets remained behind. Toys sat on bedroom floors. Family photographs hung on walls. People locked their doors expecting to come home. They never would. Nearly 50,000 residents were evacuated. Pripyat became a ghost city overnight. Today, abandoned buildings still stand as haunting reminders of that day. Classrooms remain frozen in time. Ferris wheels rust. Apartments sit empty. Nature has reclaimed much of the city, yet silence dominates everything. The disaster was far from over. Beneath the reactor lay enormous amounts of water. Experts feared molten nuclear fuel could burn through the floor and reach those water reservoirs. If that happened, a massive steam explosion might occur, potentially contaminating huge portions of Europe. 3 volunteers entered flooded tunnels beneath the reactor. Their mission was simple: open drainage valves. Prevent a larger explosion. Working in darkness and radioactive water, they succeeded. Later, thousands of miners dug tunnels beneath the reactor. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, engineers, scientists, and workers joined the cleanup effort. They became known as liquidators. Many knowingly exposed themselves to dangerous radiation. Some used robots. When robots failed due to intense radiation, humans took their place. For years, their bravery remained largely unrecognized. Yet without them, the disaster could have been far worse. The destroyed reactor continued releasing radiation. Something had to be done. The Soviet Union launched one of the largest engineering operations in history. Thousands of workers raced against time. Their goal: seal the reactor forever. The result was a giant concrete and steel structure known as the sarcophagus. Built under incredibly dangerous conditions, it enclosed the remains of Reactor 4. The structure reduced radiation releases, but everyone knew it was only a temporary solution. Decades later, engineers built an even larger containment system called the New Safe Confinement. The enormous arch was slid into place over the original shelter. It became one of the largest movable structures ever constructed. How many people died because of Chernobyl? The answer remains debated. Some deaths occurred immediately. Plant workers, firefighters, emergency responders. Others developed cancers and illnesses years later. Millions of people across Europe were exposed to varying levels of radiation. Entire communities were relocated. Thousands lost their homes forever. Psychological trauma affected generations. Fear, uncertainty, and stigma followed survivors for decades. For many families, the disaster never truly ended. Even today, scientists continue studying its long-term effects. Chernobyl exposed deep problems within the Soviet system. The secrecy, the bureaucracy, the refusal to admit mistakes. Citizens began questioning official narratives. International confidence in Soviet leadership weakened. Many historians believe Chernobyl accelerated the decline of the Soviet Union itself. Just 5 years later, the Soviet Union collapsed. The explosion had damaged more than a reactor. It had damaged trust. And trust is often harder to rebuild than concrete. Today, the exclusion zone around Chernobyl remains one of the most unusual places on Earth. Wild animals roam through abandoned streets. Trees grow through buildings. Nature has returned to a city humans were forced to abandon. Yet beneath the silence lies a warning. Chernobyl was not caused by a single mistake. It was the result of many small failures, ignored warnings, poor decisions, dangerous assumptions, and the belief that nothing could go wrong. The night of April 26, 1986, changed history. It reshaped nuclear safety. It transformed public attitudes toward nuclear power. And it left behind lessons the world must never forget. Because sometimes the most dangerous disasters are not the ones we can see. They're the ones we don't realize are happening until it's too late. If you enjoyed this documentary, subscribe to Real Story Network for more powerful true stories from history. And remember, the city of Pripyat may be silent today, but its story still speaks to the world.